Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is getting passed over for a promotion they deserve. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack intelligence, but because they couldn't articulate their value in a 30-second conversation. Somewhere else, a relationship is falling apart. Not from lack of love, but from the inability to express what lives inside the heart. And in another corner of existence, a brilliant idea is dying in silence because the person who conceived it couldn't find the words to bring it to life. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Your life is not shaped by what you know. It's shaped by what you can communicate. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't make others understand your thoughts, you might as well be invisible. You can have the deepest feelings, the most innovative ideas, the clearest vision for the future. But if your words fail you, all of that stays locked inside, unseen and unheard. Communication is not a soft skill. It's the skill. It's the bridge between who you are and who the world sees. It's the difference between living with regret and living with purpose. It's the invisible force that opens doors, builds empires, saves relationships, and changes minds. Every conversation you have is either building your future or limiting it. Every word you speak is either creating connection or distance. Every time you open your mouth, you're either adding value or wasting everyone's time, including your own. And yet, most people walk through life never truly learning how to communicate. They stumble through conversations, hoping for the best. They avoid difficult discussions, letting problems fester. They speak without thinking, damaging relationships they'll spend years trying to repair. They stay silent when they should speak up, and speak when they should stay silent. They confuse volume with confidence, aggression with assertiveness, and talking with communicating. But here's what's beautiful about this moment. Everything can change, not someday, not after years of therapy or expensive courses, right here, right now. In the next hour, you're going to learn what takes most people a lifetime to figure out, if they ever do. You're going to understand the mechanics of influence, the psychology of persuasion, and the art of making people actually want to listen to what you have to say. This isn't about becoming someone you're not. This isn't about manipulation or fake confidence, or pretending to be more extroverted than you are. And this is about unlocking what's already inside you. It's about removing the barriers that have been holding you back from expressing yourself clearly, powerfully, and authentically. It's about finally becoming the person who walks into a room and knows exactly what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. You're going to learn why some people command attention the moment they speak while others can't get a word in. You're going to discover why certain voices inspire action while others inspire indifference. You're going to understand the hidden patterns that separate those who influence from those who are influenced, those who lead from those who follow, those who get heard from those who get ignored. Over the next 60 minutes, we're going to dismantle everything you think you know about communication and rebuild it from the ground up. No theory without practice, no concepts without application. Just pure, actionable strategies that will transform the way you speak, listen, and connect with every single person you encounter. The person you are right now, reading these words, is about to become someone different, someone more confident, someone more articulate, someone who can walk into any situation and handle it with grace and power. All it takes is 1 hour of complete focus, 1 hour of honest commitment to becoming better than you were yesterday. Are you ready? Because once you learn what you're about to learn, you can't unlearn it. Once you see communication clearly, you'll never struggle with it the same way again. Your relationships will deepen, your career will accelerate, your influence will expand, and all of it starts right here, right now, with the decision to take control of how you show up in the world. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Foundation. Understanding what communication really is. Most people think communication is about talking. They're wrong. Communication is about understanding. It's about taking what exists in your mind and transferring it as accurately as possible into someone else's mind. It's about creating shared meaning in a world where everyone experiences reality differently. Think about that for a moment. Every person you meet has a completely unique way of seeing the world. They grew up in different circumstances, with different parents, different experiences, different fears, different dreams. Their brain has wired itself in ways that are fundamentally different from yours. And yet somehow you're supposed to connect with them. You're supposed to make them understand you, care about what you're saying, and maybe even change their mind about something important. That's the magic and the challenge of communication. It's not just about moving your mouth and making sounds. It's about recognizing that the gap between minds is vast, and your job is to build a bridge across that gap, strong enough to carry your ideas safely to the other side. Here's where most people go wrong from the start. They think about what they want to say instead of what the other person needs to hear. They focus on their message instead of the receiver. They care more about being right than being understood. And that's why their communication fails before it even begins. Effective communication starts with a fundamental shift in perspective. It's not about you. It's about them. It's about entering their world, understanding their frame of reference, speaking their language, and meeting them where they are. Only then can you hope to take them where you want them to go. When you speak, you're not just transmitting information. You're navigating a complex landscape of emotions, biases, past experiences, current mood states, attention levels, and competing priorities. The person listening to you isn't a blank slate waiting to receive your wisdom. They're a fully formed human being with their own agenda, their own problems, their own internal dialogue that's constantly running in the background. Your words are competing for attention in a mind that's already crowded with thoughts, worries, and distractions. If you don't make what you're saying relevant to them, if you don't give them a reason to care, if you don't package your message in a way that penetrates their defenses and connects with what they already believe or want, then you're just creating noise. This is why knowing your material isn't enough. Having the facts isn't enough. Being right isn't enough. You have to understand the psychology of the person you're talking to. You have to know what motivates them, what threatens them, what they value, what they fear. You have to see the world through their eyes before you can ask them to see it through yours. Let's talk about the 3 levels of communication that most people never think about. As the first level is the words themselves. This is the content, the actual information you're trying to convey. Most people think this is all that matters. They're wrong. Research shows that words account for only 7% of communication impact. 7%. Let that sink in. The second level is how you say those words, your tone, your pace, your volume, your inflection. This accounts for about 38% of your communication impact. The same sentence can mean completely different things depending on how you deliver it. That's interesting can express genuine fascination or complete dismissal, and the words are identical. The difference is entirely in the delivery. The third level is your body language, your facial expressions, your posture, your gestures, your eye contact. This is 55% of your communication impact. More than half of what you're communicating has nothing to do with what you're actually saying. People are reading you constantly, unconsciously processing thousands of nonverbal signals that tell them whether to trust you, believe you, like you, or dismiss you. This means that becoming a great communicator isn't just about finding better words. It's about aligning all three levels so they're sending the same message. When your words say one thing but your tone says another, people believe your tone. When your tone is confident but your body language is closed off and defensive, people believe your body language. Your conscious mind can control your words, but your unconscious signals are much harder to fake, and people pick up on that inauthenticity instantly. And here's another truth that will change how you approach every conversation. People don't remember what you say. They remember how you made them feel. Years from now, they won't recall your brilliant arguments or your perfect logic. They'll remember whether they felt respected or dismissed, heard or ignored, valued or judged. They'll remember whether talking to you made them feel better about themselves or worse. This is why the most persuasive people aren't necessarily the smartest or the most articulate. They're the ones who make others feel good. They're the ones who make people feel important, understood, and appreciated. They're the ones who create positive emotional experiences through their interactions, and those positive feelings become associated with everything they say. If you want people to listen to you, you have to give them a reason that goes beyond the content. You have to make the experience of listening to you rewarding in itself. That means bringing energy, enthusiasm, and genuine interest to your conversations. It means showing that you care about the other person, not just about making your point. It means being present, being authentic, and being human. Too many people communicate like robots, delivering information without emotion, without connection, without soul. They wonder why nobody listens, why nobody cares, why their messages fall flat. It's because they've forgotten that communication is a fundamentally human activity, and humans respond to humanity. We respond to warmth, to humor, to vulnerability, to passion. We tune out to monotone, to arrogance, to detachment, to self-importance. Let's address the elephant in the room, fear. Most communication problems aren't actually communication problems. They're fear problems, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of looking stupid, fear of conflict, fear of vulnerability. These fears create barriers that prevent authentic communication from happening. When you're afraid, your body goes into fight or flight mode. Your heart races. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your voice gets shaky. Your mind goes blank. All of your cognitive resources get diverted to dealing with the perceived threat, which means you can't think clearly, speak smoothly, or respond appropriately. The fear itself becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, making you communicate poorly, which gives you more reason to be afraid next time. The way out of this cycle isn't to eliminate fear, and it's to change your relationship with it. It's to recognize that fear is just your body's way of telling you that something matters. The nervousness you feel before a presentation isn't a sign that you're going to fail. It's a sign that you care about doing well. The anxiety you feel before a difficult conversation isn't weakness. It's evidence that the relationship matters to you. Great communicators feel fear too. They just don't let it stop them. They feel the nervousness and speak anyway. They feel the discomfort and stay in the conversation anyway. They feel the vulnerability and share their truth anyway. Over time, this repeated exposure to fear without catastrophic consequences retrains the brain. The fear doesn't disappear, but it loses its power to control you. Here's what you need to internalize. Every conversation is a chance to practice. Every interaction is an opportunity to get better. There's no such thing as a throwaway conversation or a meaningless exchange. Every time you communicate, you're either reinforcing old patterns or creating new ones. You're either building confidence or maintaining fear. You're either getting better or staying the same. This means you can't wait for the big moments to try to show up as your best self. The big presentation, the important meeting, the crucial conversation with your partner. These are not the times to experiment with new skills. These are the times when you'll default to whatever patterns you've built through thousands of smaller interactions. If you want to show up powerfully in the moments that matter, you have to practice in the moments that don't. You have to treat every conversation with the barista, the colleague, the stranger on the elevator as a training ground. You have to be intentional about how you speak, how you listen, how you carry yourself, even when nobody important is watching, especially when nobody important is watching. Because here's the truth. How you do anything is how you do everything. If you're a sloppy communicator in casual conversations, you'll be a sloppy communicator in important ones. If you're a poor listener when the stakes are low, you'll be a poor listener when the stakes are high. Your habits don't change just because the situation changes. Your habits are who you are. So starting right now, every conversation becomes important. Every exchange becomes meaningful. Every interaction becomes a chance to embody the kind of communicator you want to be. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready, not when you feel more confident. Right now, in this moment, with the next person you talk to. This is the foundation. This is where everything else builds from. Communication is about creating understanding. It's about them, not you. It's about aligning your words, your tone, and your body language. It's about making people feel something positive. It's about managing fear instead of being managed by it. And it's about practicing constantly, intentionally, in every single interaction. Get this foundation right, and everything else becomes easier. Skip this foundation, and all the tactics and techniques in the world won't save you. This is where mastery begins. Chapter 2. The Voice. Mastering your most powerful instrument. Your voice is a weapon, not in the sense of causing harm, but in the sense of power, precision, and impact. It can cut through noise, command attention, inspire action, and change minds. But most people never learn to wield it properly. They let their voice happen to them instead of controlling it deliberately. They sound unsure when they mean to sound confident. They sound aggressive when they mean to sound assertive. They sound bored when they mean to sound engaged. Your voice reveals everything about your internal state, confidence or insecurity, energy or exhaustion, conviction or doubt, interest or indifference. People are reading these signals constantly, making split-second judgments about whether to trust you, follow you, believe you, or ignore you. And most of this happens unconsciously, below the level of rational thought. This means that changing your voice can literally change how people respond to you. Not by faking or manipulating, but by bringing your external expression into alignment with your internal intention. When you learn to control your voice, you gain the ability to project the qualities you want to be known for: authority, warmth, passion, credibility, enthusiasm, calm. Let's start with the basics that most people get wrong. Breathing. You cannot have a powerful voice without proper breathing. You just can't. Your breath is the fuel that powers your voice, and most people are running on empty without even realizing it. When you're nervous or stressed, you breathe shallowly from your chest. This creates a weak, thin, shaky voice. It also triggers more anxiety because shallow breathing signals danger to your nervous system, creating a vicious cycle. Chest breathing gives you a voice that sounds uncertain, timid, and unconvincing. Powerful speakers breathe from their diaphragm. This is deep belly breathing that creates a strong, steady flow of air to support your voice. When you breathe properly, your voice automatically becomes richer, fuller, and more resonant. You sound more confident because you are more confident. The act of breathing deeply calms your nervous system, which makes you feel more in control, which makes you sound more in control. Here's how to practice diaphragmatic breathing. Put one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. When you breathe in, your belly should expand while your chest stays relatively still. This feels unnatural at first because you've probably spent years breathing incorrectly. Keep practicing. Before any important conversation, take 3 slow, deep belly breaths. Feel your body calm down. Feel your voice settle into a lower, more controlled register. Now let's talk about pitch. Men and women with lower pitched voices are perceived as more authoritative, more credible, and more trustworthy. This isn't fair, and it isn't conscious, but it's real. Voices that are too high-pitched sound nervous, uncertain, or childish. This is especially problematic for women who already have higher voices on average and are judged more harshly for it. The good news is that you can lower your pitch intentionally, not drastically and not in a way that sounds fake, but enough to make a meaningful difference in how you're perceived. As the key is to relax. When you're tense, your vocal cords tighten, which raises your pitch. When you relax, especially in your throat and jaw, your voice naturally drops to a lower, more pleasing register. Before you speak in any important situation, do a quick body scan. Release the tension in your shoulders, unclench your jaw, loosen your tongue. Take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Feel your voice drop. This isn't about forcing a fake deep voice. It's about removing the tension that's artificially raising your natural pitch. Here's another critical element: pace. Most nervous speakers talk too fast. They rush through their words as if they're trying to get the scary experience over with as quickly as possible. This makes them sound anxious and makes it hard for people to follow what they're saying. When you talk too fast, you're essentially telling people that you don't believe what you're saying is worth their time. Confident speakers slow down. They give their words space to breathe. They let important points land before moving on to the next one. They're not afraid of silence because they know that pauses create emphasis and give people time to absorb what's being said. Practice speaking at about 75% of your natural speed. This will feel painfully slow at first. Do it anyway. Record yourself and listen back. You'll be surprised to discover that what feels too slow to you sounds perfectly natural to others. The pace that feels comfortable when you're nervous is actually too fast for effective communication. Strategic pauses are one of the most powerful tools in communication, and almost nobody uses them. When you want to emphasize a point, pause right before you say it. This creates anticipation. It tells people that something important is coming. It gives them a moment to focus their attention fully on what you're about to say. Watch great speakers and notice how they use silence. They're not afraid of it. They don't fill every second with sound. They understand that the pauses are where the power lives. The pause before a punchline makes it funnier. The pause before a dramatic revelation makes it more impactful. The pause after a question makes people actually think about the answer instead of just waiting for you to keep talking. Here's what most people don't realize. When you pause, you're in control. When you fill silence with and and nervous laughter, you've lost control. The silence is controlling you. But when you pause deliberately, when you let the quiet exist without scrambling to fill it, you demonstrate mastery. You show that you're comfortable with yourself and your message. Practice this everywhere. In regular conversations, in meetings, in presentations. Before you answer a question, pause for 2 seconds. Let people wait. They will. And when you finally speak, they'll be paying attention in a way they wouldn't have been if you jumped in immediately. Volume is another dimension most people mismanage. Speaking too softly makes you forgettable. People literally can't hear you, which means they can't remember you. It signals that you don't believe you deserve to be heard, and people take their cues from you. If you act like your words don't matter, they'll believe you. But speaking too loudly all the time is just as bad, and it's aggressive, it's exhausting. It prevents you from using volume strategically to create emphasis and variation. The most effective speakers vary their volume based on what they're trying to achieve. When you want to command attention or emphasize authority, speak louder. When you want to create intimacy or share something personal, drop your volume. When you want people to really lean in and listen, get quieter. Counterintuitively, lowering your volume can actually increase attention because people have to work slightly harder to hear you, which increases their engagement. The key is projection, not shouting. Projection means your voice fills the space without you having to strain. It comes from proper breathing and good posture. Stand or sit up straight. Imagine a string pulling the top of your head toward the ceiling. Breathe from your diaphragm. Speak from your core, not your throat. Your voice should feel effortless, even when it's loud. Inflection is the melody of your speech, and most people's voices are monotone. They say everything at the same pitch, with the same energy, in the same tone. This is incredibly boring to listen to. After about 30 seconds, people's minds wander. They might be looking at you, but they're not hearing you. Great communicators vary their inflection constantly. They go up at the end of questions. They go down at the end of statements. They add emphasis to important words by changing pitch or volume. They create a rhythm that keeps people engaged, that makes listening feel dynamic rather than tedious. Here's a simple exercise. Read a children's book out loud and really ham it up. Use different voices for different characters. Get excited during exciting parts. Get quiet during suspenseful parts. Vary your pitch wildly. This feels ridiculous, and that's the point. You need to break through your self-consciousness about using your voice expressively. Once you've experienced how much variation is possible, you can dial it back to appropriate levels for professional settings while still maintaining more dynamism than before. Record yourself having a conversation or giving a presentation. Listen back and pay attention only to your voice, not your words. Does it sound engaged or bored, confident or uncertain, dynamic or monotone, warm or cold? Most people are shocked by how different they sound from how they think they sound. This awareness is the first step toward change. One of the most common vocal mistakes is upspeak, ending statements as if they're questions. This makes everything you say sound uncertain, even when you're stating facts. It signals that you're seeking approval or validation, that you're not confident in what you're saying. It's epidemic among younger speakers, especially women, and it's destroying their credibility. Make a conscious effort to lower your pitch at the end of statements. Practice saying declarative sentences with downward inflection. The meeting is tomorrow. Not, the meeting is tomorrow. The difference is subtle but powerful. One sounds authoritative, the other sounds uncertain. Here's something most people never consider. Your voice needs warm-up. Just like athletes stretch before competing, your voice needs to be warmed up before important communications. Speak out loud for a few minutes before a big conversation. Read something aloud. Do some vocal exercises. Sing. Get your voice ready to perform. Your voice also needs rest. If you talk all day without breaks, your voice gets tired, strained, and loses power. Build in periods of vocal rest. Stay hydrated. Warm water or tea with honey can help soothe your vocal cords. Avoid excessive caffeine and alcohol, which can dry out your voice. Pay attention to your environment. Background noise forces you to speak louder, which strains your voice. If possible, control your environment to minimize competing sounds. If you can't control it, position yourself strategically so people can hear you without you having to shout. Here's the bottom line. Your voice is trainable. You're not stuck with the voice you have. Through conscious practice, you can develop a voice that commands respect, builds trust, and inspires action. But it requires deliberate effort. It requires paying attention to how you sound, not just what you say. It requires practicing new patterns until they become automatic. The voice you have right now is the result of years of unconscious habits. Changing those habits won't happen overnight. But every time you consciously breathe deeply, slow down, pause strategically, project confidently, and vary your inflection, you're creating a new pattern. Do it enough times, and the new pattern becomes your new normal. Your voice is your instrument. Learn to play it masterfully. Chapter 3. The Body, Speaking Without Words. Here's a truth that will change how you approach every interaction. People believe what they see more than what they hear. When your words and your body language contradict each other, people trust the body language every single time. You can say, "I'm confident," in the most articulate way possible. But if you're slouching, avoiding eye contact, and fidgeting, nobody believes you. Your body is constantly communicating. Every gesture, every expression, every shift in posture is sending signals that people are reading and interpreting unconsciously. You can't turn it off. You can only decide whether to control it deliberately or let it control you. Most people's body language is working against them. They're accidentally communicating nervousness, disinterest, defensiveness, or insecurity, when they mean to communicate confidence, engagement, openness, and authority. And then they wonder why their words don't have the impact they intended. Let's start with the foundation of all body language, posture. How you hold your body determines not just how others perceive you, but how you perceive yourself. There's fascinating research showing that body language doesn't just communicate your internal state to others. It actually shapes your internal state. When you stand tall, with your shoulders back and your chest open, your body produces more testosterone and less cortisol. This means you actually feel more confident and less stressed just from changing your posture. When you slouch, the opposite happens. You feel less confident and more anxious. Your body and mind are in constant feedback with each other. Good posture means standing or sitting up straight without being rigid. Imagine that string again, pulling the top of your head toward the ceiling. Your shoulders are back, but relaxed, not tense. Your chest is open, your weight is balanced. You're taking up space without apologizing for it. Most people make themselves smaller than they are. They hunch their shoulders, they cross their arms, they pull their limbs in close to their body. This is protective body language that signals insecurity and defensiveness. It makes you look weak and feel weak. Confident body language is expansive. It takes up space. For men, this often means sitting with legs apart rather than crossed, standing with feet shoulder-width apart, using broad gestures. For women, it means not shrinking, not crossing arms or legs tightly, not making yourself as small as possible in the chair. There's a balance to strike here. Taking up too much space, especially in ways that infringe on others' space, reads as aggressive or disrespectful. The goal is to occupy your rightful space fully and unapologetically, not to dominate others' space. Now let's talk about what to do with your hands, because this is where most people fall apart. Your hands are either helping you or hurting you. There's no neutral. Hands that are expressive and purposeful enhance your message. Hands that are fidgeting, hidden, or frozen detract from it. When you're standing, let your arms hang naturally at your sides when you're not gesturing. This feels vulnerable because you're unprotected, and that's exactly why it communicates confidence. It says, I don't need to guard myself. I'm comfortable and in control. When you're sitting, rest your hands on the table or armrests, or fold them loosely in your lap. Don't hide them under the table. Hidden hands make people unconsciously distrust you because they can't see what you're doing. Use gestures to emphasize your points, but make them count. Every gesture should have a purpose. Random nervous movements are distracting and make you look anxious. Deliberate gestures that align with your words make you look passionate and engaged. Keep your gestures in the power zone, which is roughly the area between your shoulders and your waist. Gestures that stay in this zone look professional and controlled. Gestures that go above your head or below your waist look unprofessional and erratic. Match the size of your gestures to your audience. Speaking to one person across a table requires smaller, more intimate gestures. Speaking to 100 people in an auditorium requires bigger and more expansive gestures so people in the back can see them. Here's what to avoid: fig leaf position, where your hands are clasped in front of your groin. This screams insecurity. Hands in pockets, which looks too casual and hides your hands. Arms crossed, which looks defensive and closed off. Touching your face or hair, which looks nervous and makes people think you're lying. Gripping a pen or other object like it's a lifeline, which broadcasts anxiety. If you don't know what to do with your hands, hold something that gives you a reason to have purposeful hand positioning. A notepad, a clicker for slides, a glass of water. But hold it with purpose, not death grip tension. Eye contact is one of the most powerful forms of nonverbal communication, and most people do it wrong. Too little eye contact makes you seem shifty, untrustworthy, or uninterested. Too much makes you seem aggressive or weird. The right amount builds connection and trust. The general rule in Western cultures is to maintain eye contact about 60 to 70% of the time when speaking and about 80% when listening. Look away occasionally to think or to give the other person a break from the intensity. But don't stare at the floor or ceiling. Look away laterally, which seems more natural. When speaking to a group, don't let your eyes scan constantly over people like a searchlight. That's impersonal. Instead, make eye contact with one person for a complete thought or sentence. Then move to another person. This creates multiple moments of individual connection that make everyone feel included. If maintaining eye contact feels too intense, you look at the bridge of the person's nose or their eyebrows. From a normal conversational distance, they won't be able to tell the difference, but it will feel more comfortable for you. In different cultures, eye contact norms vary significantly. In some Asian and Middle Eastern cultures, sustained eye contact, especially with authority figures, is considered disrespectful. In some African cultures, looking down when being addressed by an elder shows respect. Know your audience and adjust accordingly. Your facial expressions need to match your message. If you're delivering serious news with a smile, people won't take you seriously. If you're sharing exciting information with a flat expression, people won't feel excited. Your face should amplify your words, not contradict them. And the most important facial muscle for connection is the muscle around your eyes. When you smile with just your mouth, it looks fake. Real smiles involve the eyes. They crinkle at the corners. This is why smiling with your eyes is a thing. People can spot a fake smile from across the room because the eyes don't change. Practice having a neutral, pleasant expression as your default. This is called resting face. And for many people, their resting face looks angry, bored, or upset. Film yourself or look at photos of yourself when you think your face is neutral. Is it actually neutral, or is it sending negative signals? If it's negative, consciously adjust it to be more open and pleasant. Mirroring is a powerful technique where you subtly match the other person's body language. If they lean in, you lean in. If they cross their legs, you cross yours. This creates unconscious rapport and makes people feel comfortable with you. But it has to be subtle and natural, not obvious mimicry. Your proximity to others matters enormously. Every culture has different norms for personal space, but in general, standing or sitting too close makes people uncomfortable. It's invasive. Too far away makes you seem distant or uninterested. Find the sweet spot where there's enough space to be comfortable, but not so much that there's a physical barrier to connection. In Western cultures, intimate distance is 0 to 18 inches, reserved for very close relationships. Personal distance is 18 inches to 4 feet, appropriate for friends and casual conversations. Social distance is 4 to 12 feet, typical for professional interactions. Public distance is 12 feet or more, used for public speaking. Position yourself at the appropriate distance for the relationship and context. If someone steps back when you approach, you're too close. If they lean in or step forward, you can come closer. Pay attention to these signals and adjust. The angle at which you position yourself matters too. Standing or sitting directly across from someone can feel confrontational. Sitting or standing at a slight angle, like at 90 degrees, feels more collaborative and less aggressive. This is especially important in negotiations or difficult conversations. Your movements should be smooth and controlled, not jerky or rushed. Rushed movements signal nervousness. Slow, deliberate movements signal confidence and control. This applies to everything. How you walk, how you sit down, how you pick up a glass of water. It's how you turn pages. When you walk into a room, walk with purpose, not fast, not slow, but steady and direct. Head up, shoulders back, arms swinging naturally. This immediately establishes presence and confidence before you've said a single word. When you sit down, do it smoothly and completely. Don't perch on the edge of your seat like you're ready to flee. Sit back in the chair. Take up the full space. This signals that you're comfortable and planning to stay, not anxious to leave. Eliminate nervous fidgeting, no tapping feet, no bouncing legs, no playing with jewelry or pens, no touching your hair or face. These movements scream anxiety and distract people from your message. If you catch yourself fidgeting, stop. Take a breath. Refocus. Physical barriers create psychological barriers. If you're sitting behind a desk while someone else is sitting in front of it, there's a power imbalance. If you're speaking from behind a podium while everyone else is in chairs, there's distance. Sometimes these barriers are necessary and appropriate, but be aware of how they affect the dynamic. If you want to create connection and equality, remove barriers. Come out from behind the desk. Step away from the podium. Sit in a circle instead of across from each other. Position yourself on the same level, not higher or lower. Your energy level needs to match or slightly exceed the energy you want from others. If you want people to be excited about your idea, you need to show excitement. If you want them to take something seriously, you need to demonstrate seriousness through your body language. Energy is contagious, and people will rise or fall to meet the energy you bring. But there's a difference between high energy and nervous energy. High energy is controlled, purposeful, and directed. Nervous energy is scattered, unfocused, and overwhelming. Learn to channel your energy intentionally rather than letting it spill out chaotically. Practice power poses before important interactions. Research by Amy Cuddy showed that holding expansive poses for 2 minutes increases confidence and decreases stress hormones. Before a big meeting or presentation, find a private space. Stand like a superhero with your hands on your hips and your chest out, or raise your arms in a victory pose. Hold it for 2 minutes. You'll feel silly, but you'll also feel more confident. Your body language needs to be congruent across all channels. If your posture is confident but your hands are shaking, the incongruence is noticeable. If your face is smiling but your shoulders are hunched, something's off. Work on bringing all elements into alignment so your entire body is telling the same story. Record yourself in conversations or presentations and watch with the sound off. What is your body saying? Does it match what you want to communicate? Are there nervous habits you didn't know you had? Awareness is the first step to change. Practice in low-stakes situations. Work on your posture while standing in line at the grocery store. Practice eye contact while talking to a barista. Work on your hand gestures while explaining something to a friend. Build the muscle memory so these things become automatic in high-stakes situations. Your body is your first language and your most honest one. Master it, and you master a huge component of how others perceive and respond to you. Ignore it, and you're fighting an uphill battle no matter how good your words are. Everything your body does is either building your credibility or destroying it. There is no neutral ground. Take control of your nonverbal communication and watch how differently people treat you. Chapter 4. The Mind. Thinking before speaking. The space between thought and speech is where communication success lives or dies. Most people don't use this space. They think something and immediately say it, without filtering, without organizing, without considering impact. This is why so many conversations go wrong. This is why so many people regret what they said the moment it leaves their mouth. Powerful communicators think before they speak, always. This doesn't mean they're slow or hesitant. It means they've trained themselves to run a quick mental check before opening their mouth. Is this true? Is this helpful? Is this kind? Is this the right time? Is this the right way to say it? This mental filter prevents most communication disasters before they happen. It keeps you from saying something in anger that you can't take back. It keeps you from oversharing with the wrong person. It keeps you from making jokes that fall flat or offend. It keeps you from filling silence with meaningless words just because you're uncomfortable. Here's the process. Pause, think, speak. The pause can be half a second or several seconds depending on the situation, but it exists. It's deliberate. And it gives your brain the time it needs to engage rather than just react. In that pause, you're doing several things simultaneously. You're considering your goal for the conversation. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to inform, persuade, comfort, connect, or something else? Your words should serve that goal, not just spill out randomly. You're considering your audience. Who are you talking to? What do they know? What do they care about? What are they likely to resist? How can you frame your message in a way that resonates with them specifically? You're organizing your thoughts. What's the main point? What are the supporting points? What's the evidence or examples? What's the logical sequence? Jumbled thoughts produce jumbled communication. Clear thinking produces clear speaking. You're choosing your words deliberately. Not the first words that come to mind, but the best words. Words that are precise, appropriate, and powerful. The difference between the almost right word and the right word is the difference between lightning bug and lightning. Most people's default communication mode is reactive. Someone says something, and they immediately respond. Someone asks a question, and they start talking before they fully formed their answer. Someone criticizes them, and they defend themselves instantly. This reactive mode produces terrible communication. Proactive communication is different. It's thoughtful. It's strategic. It's controlled. You hear what someone says. You process it. You decide what you want to say back. Then, and only then, do you speak. Thus, this tiny shift creates massive improvements in communication quality. One of the biggest thinking mistakes people make is assuming they know what someone else means without verifying. They hear words and immediately interpret them through their own lens, their own experience, their own biases. Then they respond to what they think the person meant, not what the person actually meant. This creates miscommunication and conflict. Before you respond to anything important, make sure you understand it correctly. Ask clarifying questions, paraphrase what you heard, and check for accuracy. So what I'm hearing is X. Is that right? This simple step prevents countless misunderstandings. Another thinking trap is planning your response while the other person is still talking. You're not really listening. You're waiting for your turn to talk. You're rehearsing what you're going to say. Meanwhile, you're missing important information and missing the opportunity to actually connect with what they're expressing. Force yourself to listen completely before formulating your response. This is hard. Your brain wants to jump ahead. Resist that urge. Stay present. Hear everything they have to say. Only when they're done speaking do you shift into response mode. Here's a powerful reframe. You don't have to respond to everything. Sometimes the best response is no response. Sometimes silence is more powerful than words. Sometimes, "I need to think about that," is the wisest thing you can say. We live in a culture that rewards quick responses. We think fast talkers are smart, and people who take time to think are slow. This is backwards. Quick responses are often shallow responses, and our thoughtful responses require time. Give yourself permission to take that time. When someone asks you a difficult question, it's completely acceptable to say, "That's a good question. Let me think about it for a moment." Then actually think about it. Don't just use it as a filler phrase. Use it as an opportunity to organize your thoughts and deliver a better answer. In high-stakes communications, like negotiations or difficult conversations, preparation is everything. You can't think on the fly and expect to perform at your best. You need to do your thinking in advance. Before an important conversation, write down your objectives. What do you want to accomplish? What's the ideal outcome? What's the minimum acceptable outcome? What are you willing to compromise on? What are your non-negotiables? Get clarity on this before you walk into the room. Anticipate objections and prepare responses. If you're trying to persuade someone, what are all the reasons they might resist? What are all the questions they might ask? How will you address each one? The more prepared you are, the more confident and articulate you'll be. Think through different scenarios. What if the conversation goes well? What if it goes poorly? What if they say yes? What if they say no? What if they get angry? Having thought through these possibilities in advance means you won't be caught off guard and won't have to scramble for a response. But here's the balance. You also can't script everything. Over-preparation can make you sound robotic and inflexible. The goal is to be prepared enough that you're confident but flexible enough that you can adapt to what actually happens. Think of it like jazz. Jazz musicians know music theory inside and out. They've practiced their scales thousands of times. They know their instrument perfectly. All of that preparation gives them the foundation to improvise brilliantly. Without the foundation, improvisation is just randomness. Your communication should be the same way. Know your material, know your objectives, know your key points. Then trust yourself to find the right words in the moment, adjusting to the actual conversation, rather than rigidly following a script. Critical thinking is essential for effective communication. This means evaluating information for accuracy, logic, and relevance before you repeat it. Most people share information without verifying it. They hear something and pass it along as if it's true. This destroys credibility. Before you state something as fact, make sure it's actually a fact. Before you share an opinion, consider whether it's informed or just reactionary. Before you tell a story, verify that it's accurate. Your reputation for truthfulness and reliability is built through thousands of small choices to be accurate rather than just interesting. Emotional thinking versus logical thinking is another critical distinction. Both have their place, but you need to know which mode you're in and which mode the situation requires. Emotional thinking is driven by feelings. It's reactive, passionate, and subjective. It's powerful for connecting with people, for expressing vulnerability, for building relationships. But it's terrible for problem solving, decision making, or conflict resolution. Logical thinking is driven by facts and reason. It's analytical, objective, and systematic. It's essential for making good decisions and solving complex problems. but it can be cold and disconnected, failing to account for the human element. The best communicators can toggle between both modes and blend them when appropriate. They use logic to solve problems and emotion to connect with people. They lead with facts, but acknowledge feelings. They make decisions rationally, but communicate those decisions with empathy. Know which mode you default to and practice the other one. If you're naturally logical, work on accessing and expressing emotion. If you're naturally emotional, work on bringing in more logic and analysis. The goal is versatility. Cognitive biases are distortions in thinking that affect everyone, and they dramatically impact communication. Confirmation bias makes you seek information that confirms what you already believe and ignore information that contradicts it. This makes you close-minded and unable to have productive conversations with people who disagree with you. Fundamental attribution error makes you attribute others' mistakes to their character, but your own mistakes to circumstances. When someone is late, they're irresponsible. When you're late, there was traffic. This double standard destroys empathy and creates conflict. Dunning-Kruger effect means people with limited knowledge in an area often overestimate their competence while experts underestimate theirs. This is why mediocre communicators often feel confident, while great ones feel they still have so much to learn. Being aware of these biases doesn't eliminate them, but it helps you catch them and correct for them. When you find yourself getting defensive or dismissive, check what bias might be operating right now. This awareness creates space for better thinking and therefore better communication. Mental models are frameworks for understanding how things work. Having good mental models makes you a better thinker and therefore a better communicator. You can explain complex ideas more clearly because you understand them more deeply. Invest in building mental models across different domains. Learn basic psychology to understand human behavior. Learn basic economics to understand incentives. Learn basic statistics to understand probability and risk. Learn basic logic to identify flawed arguments. The more frameworks you have for understanding the world, the more clearly you can think and speak about it. You stop relying on cliches and superficial understanding. You develop genuine insight that people actually value hearing. Metacognition is thinking about thinking. It's the ability to step back and observe your own thought processes. Am I being logical right now or emotional? Am I seeing this clearly or through a distorted lens? Am I reacting or responding? This meta-awareness is incredibly powerful. It allows you to catch yourself before you communicate poorly. It allows you to course-correct mid-conversation when you realize you're heading in the wrong direction. It allows you to learn from your mistakes by analyzing what went wrong in your thinking. After important conversations, review them. What went well? What went poorly? Where did your thinking fail you? Where did it serve you? What will you do differently next time? This reflection turns experience into wisdom. The quality of your thinking determines the quality of your communication. You cannot speak more clearly than you think. You cannot explain something you don't understand. You cannot persuade someone if you haven't thought through your argument. This means that becoming a better communicator starts with becoming a better thinker. Read more. Learn more. Question your assumptions. Challenge your beliefs. Seek out diverse perspectives. Engage with ideas that make you uncomfortable. Build your mental capacity. Your mind is the engine that powers your communication. Keep it sharp, keep it honest, and keep it growing. Everything else follows from this. Chapter 5. The listen, the most underrated communication skill. Here's a radical idea. You might be a terrible listener. Not because you're a bad person, but because nobody ever taught you how to listen properly. Most people think listening is passive. You just sit there and hear sounds. If you wanted to get better at speaking, you'd practice speaking. But listening, what's there to practice? Everything. Listening is an active skill that requires intention, technique, and practice. And it's arguably more important than speaking, because you can't respond effectively to what you don't understand. You can't connect with people you don't really hear. You can't persuade people whose concerns you haven't grasped. Most people don't listen. They wait for their turn to talk. There's a massive difference. When you're waiting for your turn to talk, you're not processing what the other person is saying. You're thinking about what you're going to say next. You're planning your response. You're looking for an opening to jump in with your opinion or story. True listening means putting your own agenda aside temporarily and genuinely trying to understand what the other person is communicating. Not just their words, but their meaning. Not just their facts, but their feelings. Not just what they're saying, but what they're not saying. Here's what happens when you truly listen to someone. They feel valued. They feel respected. They feel understood. And people who feel understood are far more likely to listen to you in return. Listening creates reciprocity. It builds trust. It opens the door to real influence. But when you don't listen, when you interrupt or zone out or make it obvious you're just waiting to talk, people shut down. They stop sharing. They stop caring about the conversation. And they definitely stop caring about what you have to say. Let's talk about the levels of listening. Level 1 is ignoring. You're physically present but mentally absent. You're thinking about other things. The person could say anything and you wouldn't notice. This destroys relationships. Level 2 is pretending to listen. You're nodding and making sounds, but you're not actually processing anything. You might catch a word here or there, but you'd struggle to summarize what the person just said. This is marginally better than ignoring but still deeply disrespectful. Level 3 is selective listening. You hear the parts that interest you or confirm your existing opinions, and you tune out the rest. This is what most people do most of the time. It's better than nothing, but it's not real listening. Level 4 is attentive listening. You're focused on the person. You're tracking what they're saying. You could repeat back the content accurately. This is good, and it's where most people stop. But there's a 5th level, empathic listening. This is where you're not just hearing the words, but understanding the emotion behind them. You're reading between the lines. You're paying attention to tone, body language, what's being emphasized, what's being avoided. You're trying to see the world from their perspective, even if you disagree with it. Empathic listening is transformative. When someone feels truly heard at this level, they become more open, more honest, more willing to be vulnerable. This is where real connection happens. This is where solutions to difficult problems emerge. This is where relationships deepen. So how do you listen empathically? First, eliminate distractions. Put your phone face down. Close your laptop. Turn away from your computer. Give the person your full, undivided attention. This seems obvious, but most people don't do it. They try to multitask, and it shows. Your body language while listening matters as much as while speaking. Face the person. Lean in slightly. Maintain appropriate eye contact. Nod occasionally to show you're following. And keep your expression engaged and responsive. Don't cross your arms or create barriers. These physical cues tell the person you're paying attention and encourage them to keep sharing. If you're looking at your phone or around the room or at your watch, You're communicating disinterest even if you're actually listening. Avoid interrupting. This is one of the most common and damaging listening mistakes. Someone is in the middle of explaining something, and you jump in with your opinion or question or related story. You've just communicated that what you have to say is more important than what they have to say. Let people finish their complete thought before you respond. Yes, even if they're taking a while to get there. Yes, even if you already know what you want to say. Resist the urge to interrupt. The only exception is if they're clearly done speaking and just need a prompt to continue, in which case, a gentle question is fine. When they're done speaking, pause for a beat before responding. This does two things. First, it makes sure they're actually done and not just taking a breath. Second, it shows that you're thinking about what they said, rather than just reacting reflexively. Use verbal acknowledgements sparingly but effectively. I see. That makes sense. These small affirmations let the person know you're tracking without interrupting their flow. But don't overdo it or do it mechanically. They should be natural responses to what's being shared. Ask clarifying questions to deepen your understanding. When you say X, do you mean Y or Z? Can you give me an example of that? How did that make you feel? These questions show you're engaged and help you understand more fully. But be careful with questions. Some questions are really just disguised statements. Don't you think you should have is not a genuine question. It's a judgment dressed up as a question. Keep your questions open, neutral, and genuinely curious. Paraphrase what you heard to verify understanding. So if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that, then let them confirm or correct. This is one of the most powerful listening techniques because it shows you're really trying to understand, and it catches misunderstandings before they cause problems. Don't minimize or dismiss what someone shares. If someone tells you they're struggling with something and you respond with, "That's not that bad," or "Other people have it worse," you've just invalidated their experience. They'll stop sharing with you. Instead, acknowledge what they're feeling. That sounds really difficult. I can see why you'd feel that way. You don't have to agree with their perspective to acknowledge it. You're just showing that you hear them and recognize their reality. Avoid immediately jumping to solutions. Men especially tend to do this. Someone shares a problem and they immediately start troubleshooting. But often, people don't want solutions. They want to be heard. They want empathy. They want validation. Before offering any advice or solutions, ask, "Do you want me to help you problem solve this? Or do you just need to vent?" This simple question prevents a lot of frustration. If they want solutions, great, offer them. If they just want to be heard, listen. Watch for emotional content, not just factual content. Someone might be telling you about their day at work, but underneath the surface story, they're communicating stress, frustration, or exhaustion. Respond to the emotion, not just the facts. "Sounds like you're really stressed" is often more connecting than, "What did you do about it?" You're acknowledging the human experience, not just the logistical details. Be comfortable with silence. When someone is thinking or feeling emotional, don't rush to fill the space with words. Let them have the time they need. Silence in conversation isn't a failure. It's often where the deepest processing and sharing happens. Notice what's not being said. If someone is talking around a subject or conspicuously avoiding something, that's often where the real issue lives. You can gently probe. "I notice you haven't mentioned X. Is that part of this?" But don't force it. People share when they're ready. Manage your own reactions. If someone is telling you something that triggers a strong emotional response in you, don't let that reaction derail the conversation. You can have feelings about what they're sharing, but if you make it about you and your feelings, you've stopped listening. Take a breath. Notice your reaction. Set it aside temporarily. Stay focused on understanding them. You can process your own feelings later. Don't compare or one-up. Someone tells you about their experience, and you respond with, "Oh, that reminds me of when I," and launch into your own story. You've just made the conversation about you instead of them. Even if your story is relevant, save it. Keep the focus on them. There are times when sharing your own experience is appropriate and helpful, but those times are fewer than you think. And when you do share, keep it brief and bring the focus back to them. Resist the urge to judge. You might disagree with someone's choices or opinions. That's fine. But while you're listening, suspend judgment. Try to understand why they think or feel the way they do. Understanding doesn't mean agreeing. It just means seeing their perspective. When you approach listening with judgment, people sense it and shut down. When you approach it with genuine curiosity, they open up. Curiosity and judgment can't coexist. Choose curiosity. I pay attention to patterns over time. One conversation tells you something. Multiple conversations with the same person reveal patterns. Maybe they always complain about the same thing but never take action. Maybe they consistently fail to take responsibility. Maybe they keep having the same type of conflict. These patterns are important information. They help you understand the person more deeply and communicate with them more effectively. But you can only see patterns if you're consistently listening deeply across multiple interactions. Remembering what people tell you is a form of respect. If someone shares something important with them and you forget it completely the next time you talk, you've communicated that they are not important enough to remember. This damages the relationship. Take mental notes. Better yet, if appropriate, take actual notes. After important conversations, jot down key points, especially things people care about or are dealing with. Then follow up later. "Hey, how did that thing go?" This shows you are really listening and you care. Different people need different listening approaches. Some people think out loud and need space to ramble before getting to their point. Others are more linear and concise. Some people are very emotional and need empathy. Others are analytical and need logic. Adapt your listening to the person. Cultural differences matter too. In some cultures, direct eye contact while listening is respectful. In others, it's aggressive. In some cultures, silence is comfortable. In others, it's awkward and should be filled. Be aware and adapt. And the most powerful listening happens when you can get yourself out of the way completely. No agenda, no judgment, no planning your response, no thinking about how this relates to you. Just pure presence and attention on the other person. This is hard. It requires practice. Your mind will wander. You'll start planning your response. You'll get distracted. When you notice this happening, gently bring yourself back. Return your attention to the person in front of you. It gets easier with practice. Here's the paradox. When you become a great listener, people think you're a great conversationalist even if you barely speak. They walk away feeling heard, valued, and connected. They attribute these positive feelings to the conversation, which means they attribute them to you. The best communicators are often the best listeners, and they gather information through listening that allows them to speak more effectively when it's their turn. They build trust through listening that makes people receptive to their ideas. They create connection through listening that opens doors that would otherwise be closed. Stop thinking of listening as the passive thing you do while waiting to talk. Start thinking of it as the active, powerful, transformative skill that it is. Master listening, and you've mastered half of communication, maybe more than half. Every conversation is an opportunity to practice. Every interaction is a chance to listen better than you did last time. Start now. With the next person you talk to, really listen. See what happens. Chapter 6. The words, choosing language that lands. Words are tools. You can use a hammer to build a house or destroy one. You can use words to inspire or devastate, to unite or divide, to clarify or confuse. Most people use words carelessly, unconsciously, habitually. They use the same phrases everyone else uses, the same cliches, the same vague generalizations. Then they wonder why their communication doesn't have impact. Powerful communicators choose their words deliberately. They understand that subtle differences in word choice create massive differences in meaning and impact. They know that the right word in the right moment can change everything. Let's start with clarity. The primary purpose of words is to transfer meaning from your mind to someone else's. If your words don't accomplish this clearly, they've failed. Most communication problems are clarity problems. You know what you mean, but your words don't convey it accurately. So the other person hears something different than you intended. Clarity requires specificity. Vague language creates vague understanding. We need to improve performance doesn't mean anything concrete. We need to increase sales by 15% in the next quarter is clear. I feel bad is vague. I feel disappointed because I expected something different is specific. Get in the habit of being more specific than feels necessary. Over-communicate rather than under-communicate. Yes, this sometimes feels like you're explaining too much. Do it anyway. The cost of being too clear is much lower than the cost of being unclear. Use concrete language instead of abstract language whenever possible. Abstractions like synergy and innovation and excellence sound impressive but don't mean much. Concrete language paints a picture. We'll combine the engineering team's technical expertise with the marketing team's customer insights to create products people actually want is concrete. One of the biggest word choice mistakes is using qualifiers that undermine your message. I kind of think, maybe we could. This might be wrong, but I'm not sure, but these phrases telegraph uncertainty and make people less likely to take you seriously. If you believe something, say it. I think we should. This is wrong because own your statements. You can still be open to other perspectives without preemptively apologizing for having one of your own. The same goes for minimizing language. Just is particularly insidious. I'm just following up. I just wanted to ask. It's just a quick question. That word makes you and your request seem small and unimportant. If your request is legitimate, make it without apologizing. Can I ask you a question is better than, can I just ask you a quick question? The second version signals that you don't think your question is worth much of their time, which makes them not want to give you their time. Avoid hedging when you don't need to. I believe we should is fine. I sort of believe we might possibly should maybe consider is painful. Hedging makes you sound unsure, which makes people unsure about following you. There are times when hedging is appropriate, like when you're genuinely uncertain or when you're trying to be diplomatic. But most people over-hedge out of habit or fear of judgment, Break the habit. Use active voice instead of passive voice. The decision was made is passive. I made the decision is active. Active voice is clearer, more direct, and more engaging. Passive voice obscures who's doing what and creates confusion. Passive voice is useful when you want to avoid assigning blame or when the actor truly doesn't matter. Mistakes were made avoids pointing fingers, but mostly passive voice is a way of avoiding responsibility or being wishy-washy. Use active voice. Positive framing is more powerful than negative framing. This will help us succeed lands better than this will prevent us from failing. Both might be technically accurate, but one is inspiring and forward-looking, while the other is fear-based and defensive. When you can, frame things in terms of what will happen rather than what won't happen, what you want rather than what you don't want, what's possible rather than what's not. But be careful not to be toxically positive. Sometimes negative realities need to be acknowledged directly. This is a serious problem, is more honest than this is an opportunity for growth. When something genuinely bad has happened, don't gaslight people with forced positivity. The word but is a communication destroyer. I hear what you're saying, but erases everything that came before it. The person knows you're about to disagree or dismiss what they said. You did a good job, but tells them the real message is coming next and it's negative. Replace but with and whenever possible. I hear what you're saying, and here's another perspective to consider. You did a good job, and here's how you could make it even better. This feels like addition instead of contradiction. Questions can be weapons or bridges. Genuine questions build understanding. Rhetorical questions disguised as attacks destroy connection. Don't you think you should have is not a question, it's a judgment. How are you thinking about is a genuine question. If you're going to ask a question, make it a real question that you're genuinely curious about the answer to. Otherwise, just make your statement directly and honestly. Leading questions are manipulative. You're not really going to do that, are you? Don't you agree that? These aren't questions. They're attempts to force someone to agree with you while pretending to be asking their opinion. People see through it. Absolute language is usually wrong and always inflammatory. You always, you never, everyone, no one. These statements are rarely literally true, and they make people defensive because they can easily point to an exception which discredits your whole argument. Use qualifiers when they're accurate. You often, you rarely, many people, few people. This is more precise and harder to argue against. Emotional language needs to match the situation. If something is mildly annoying and you describe it as devastating or catastrophic, you lose credibility. If something is genuinely serious and you describe it as a bit concerning, you're minimizing and people won't take it seriously. Calibrate your language to the reality. Don't overinflate minor issues. Don't underplay major ones. Be proportionate. Jargon can include or exclude. In the right context with the right audience, shared jargon creates connection and efficiency. It signals insider knowledge. But using jargon with people who don't understand it is either showing off or being inconsiderate. Know your audience. If they understand the jargon, use it. If they don't, explain it or use plain language. Never use jargon to sound smart. Use it to communicate clearly. Analogies and metaphors make abstract ideas concrete and memorable. Our company culture is like a garden. It requires constant attention and care. And if you neglect it, weeds take over is more impactful than our company culture requires maintenance. Good analogies connect something unfamiliar to something familiar, creating instant understanding. Bad analogies confuse or mislead. And make sure your analogies actually fit. Stories are more powerful than facts. Facts tell, stories sell. 70% of customers report satisfaction is a fact. Last week, a customer emailed me to say our product saved her business is a story. Both might be true, but the story will be remembered. Humans are wired for stories. We've been telling stories for thousands of years. We remember stories in ways we don't remember data. Use stories to illustrate your points, to make them real, to make them stick. But stories need to be true and relevant. Don't make up stories or exaggerate them. Don't tell stories just to tell stories. Use them strategically to support your message. Repetition is a powerful tool that most people underuse. If you say something important once, people might miss it. Say it 3 times in different ways, and it lands. This is critical might get lost. This is critical. Let me repeat that. This is absolutely critical. I can't overstate how critical this is. Now they know. But there's a line between effective repetition and annoying repetition. Repeat key points in varied ways, not verbatim. Give people the same message from different angles so it sinks in without feeling redundant. The rule of 3 is particularly powerful. Things said in threes are more memorable and satisfying. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. Blood, sweat, and tears. 3 feels complete. When you have a list, try to organize it in threes. If you have more items, group them into 3 categories. This makes your message easier to process and remember. And short words are usually better than long words. Big words can make you sound smart, but they can also make you sound pompous and create distance. Use is better than utilize. Help is better than facilitate. End is better than terminate. There are times when the precise long word is the right choice, but don't use big words just to use big words. Favor clarity and accessibility over showing off your vocabulary. Short sentences are easier to understand than long sentences. Vary your sentence length for rhythm and emphasis, but if a sentence runs on for multiple lines, you've probably lost people. Break it up. 1 idea per sentence is a good rule of thumb. If you're trying to cram multiple ideas into 1 sentence, split them up. Give each idea room to breathe. First-person language creates ownership and authenticity. I believe, in my experience, this is you taking responsibility for your perspective. It's honest and direct. But be careful not to overuse I to the point of being self-centered. Balance first-person with second-person and third-person perspectives. You might find research shows this suggests mix it up. Avoid absolutist language unless you're absolutely certain. This is definitely, there's no way, it's impossible. These statements are strong, and if you're wrong, you lose credibility. This is very likely. It's highly unlikely. It would be extremely difficult. These are still strong, but leave room for the possibility that you might not have perfect information. Rhetorical devices can make your language more powerful. Alliteration, parallelism, plus antithesis. These aren't just for poets. They make your language more memorable and impactful. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country is parallelism and antithesis. It's memorable because of the structure. We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields, is repetition and parallelism. It builds momentum. You don't need to be writing a speech to use these techniques. They work in regular conversation too, just more subtly. Silence is also a word choice. Knowing when not to speak is as important as knowing what to say. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. Let your previous statement hang in the air. Let someone else fill the silence. Let the weight of the moment speak for itself. Your word choice should match your audience, your purpose, and the situation. Formal language in casual settings feels stiff. Casual language in formal settings feels disrespectful. Technical language with non-technical people feels exclusionary. Oversimplified language with experts feels condescending. Read your audience and adjust. This doesn't mean being fake. It means being appropriate. You probably talk differently with your friends than with your grandparents, and that's fine. That's called code switching, and it's a valuable skill. Pay attention to how other effective communicators use language. What words do they choose? What words do they avoid? How do they structure their sentences? What patterns do you notice? Learn from them. But also develop your own voice. Don't just copy others. Find language that feels authentic to you, that expresses your thoughts and personality genuinely. Authentic language is always more powerful than borrowed language. Record yourself speaking and read back your writing. How does your word choice sound? Is it clear? Is it powerful? Is it authentic? Are there words you overuse? Are there patterns you fall into? Awareness is the first step to improvement. Build your vocabulary intentionally, not to show off, but to have more tools at your disposal. The more words you know, the more precisely you can express yourself. Read widely. Notice words you don't know. Look them up. Use them. But never use a word if you're not certain of its meaning. Using words incorrectly is worse than using simple words correctly. Your words create your reality and others' reality. The language you use shapes how you and others think about situations. Calling something a problem creates one frame. Calling it a challenge creates another. Calling it an opportunity creates a third. Same situation, different frames, different responses. Choose your words carefully. They matter more than you think. Chapter 7. The Difficult. Navigating Hard Conversations. There are conversations you avoid, conversations that make your stomach tighten when you think about having them. Conversations you rehearse in your head 100 times but never actually have. Conversations about conflict, about boundaries, about performance issues, about relationship problems, about money, about endings. These difficult conversations don't go away because you avoid them. They fester, they grow, they poison relationships and situations slowly over time. The longer you wait to have them, the harder they become and the more damage they cause. Here's the truth. Becoming skilled at difficult conversations is one of the most valuable things you can do for your personal and professional life. The ability to address hard topics directly, honestly, and compassionately gives you a massive advantage. It solves problems while they're still small. It clears the air. It builds respect. It creates growth. Most people avoid difficult conversations because they fear the outcome. They fear anger, rejection, conflict, awkwardness, or damaging the relationship. But here's what they don't realize. Avoiding the conversation often guarantees the exact outcome they're trying to prevent. When you don't address an issue, resentment builds, distance grows, the relationship deteriorates anyway, just slowly and passively instead of actively. You end up losing what you were trying to protect by not protecting it. The first step in any difficult conversation is getting clear on your purpose. Why are you having this conversation? What outcome are you hoping for? If your purpose is to punish or vent or prove you're right, the conversation will go poorly. If your purpose is to solve a problem, repair a relationship, or create understanding, you have a chance. Get clear on what you want. Not just what you don't want, but what you do want. I want them to stop doing X is a start, but it's not enough. What do you want instead? I want us to communicate more openly about our needs is better. It's positive, specific, and actionable. Before you have the conversation, examine your own contribution to the problem. Very few difficult situations are entirely one person's fault. Even if you're 90% sure the other person is in the wrong, look for your 10%. Where did you contribute? Where did you fail to speak up earlier? Where did your behavior play a role? Going into a difficult conversation, acknowledging your part, disarms defensiveness and creates space for honest dialogue. I realize I should have brought this up sooner instead of letting it build is powerful. It shows self-awareness and good faith. Choose your timing carefully. Don't have difficult conversations when either person is tired, hungry, stressed, or emotional. Don't ambush someone with a hard conversation when they're not expecting it. Give them a heads up that you want to discuss something important and find a mutually good time. Hey, I'd like to talk about something that's been on my mind. When would be a good time for you? This shows respect and gives both people time to prepare emotionally. Choose your setting carefully too. Private, not public. Neutral, not their territory or yours if possible. Somewhere you won't be interrupted or overheard. These environmental factors matter more than you'd think. Start the conversation well. The first 60 seconds set the tone for everything that follows. Don't start with accusations or blame. Start with your intention and your care for the relationship. I value our relationship and I want to talk about something that's been bothering me because I think addressing it will make things better between us. This is so much better than, we need to talk about how you screwed up. Use I statements instead of you statements. I feel dismissed when my ideas aren't acknowledged is better than, you never listen to me. The first is about your experience. The second is an accusation that will make the other person defensive. This doesn't mean avoiding accountability. You can still address someone else's behavior, but do it descriptively rather than judgmentally. When the report wasn't ready by the deadline, the client was upset, and we lost credibility is better than, you're irresponsible and you screwed up. Stick to specific behaviors and their impacts, not character attacks. This specific thing happened and it created this specific problem is useful. You're a bad person is not useful and will shut down any productive conversation. Share your perspective, then genuinely invite theirs. Here's how I see the situation. How do you see it? Then actually listen. You might learn something that changes your understanding. You might discover context you didn't know. You might realize you're both partially right. Difficult conversations should be dialogues, not monologues. If you're doing all the talking, you're not having a conversation. Make space for the other person's perspective, even if it's hard to hear. Expect and allow emotion. Difficult conversations are emotional. That's okay. Crying is okay. Anger is okay, as long as it's expressed without abuse. trying to have a difficult conversation while pretending emotions don't exist is like trying to swim while pretending water doesn't exist. I can see this as bringing up strong feelings, acknowledges the emotion without being dismissive. Give people space to feel what they feel while staying focused on working through the issue. But don't let emotion derail the conversation entirely. If someone becomes too emotional to continue productively, it's okay to take a break. This seems really intense. Should we take a few minutes and come back to this? Is perfectly reasonable. Don't mind, read, or assume you know what someone else is thinking or feeling. You probably think, I bet you feel, you clearly don't care. These are assumptions that are often wrong and always inflammatory. Instead, ask, what are you thinking? How do you feel about this? Let them tell you what's going on in their head instead of you guessing and getting it wrong. Avoid always and never in difficult conversations. You always interrupt me gives them an easy out because they can point to one time they didn't interrupt you, which derails the conversation from the real issue. You've interrupted me several times in our recent conversations is harder to argue with. Stay focused on the specific issue at hand. Don't bring up every grievance from the past 5 years. Don't let the conversation spiral into and another thing. Mode. One issue at a time. If there are multiple issues, have multiple conversations. When you're wrong, admit it. You're right. I didn't consider that perspective. I apologize. This is strength, not weakness. It builds credibility and shows that you're interested in truth and resolution, not just being right. When you're not wrong, stand your ground without being defensive. I understand why you see it that way. I see it differently, and here's why. You can disagree without being disagreeable. Focus on finding solutions, not just venting about problems. What can we do differently going forward? How can we prevent this from happening again? What would need to change for this to work better? Move toward action. Sometimes, the best outcome of a difficult conversation is agreeing to disagree. Not every conflict has a resolution where both people end up agreeing. Sometimes you just need to understand each other's positions and find a way to coexist despite the disagreement. It sounds like we see this very differently. I respect your perspective even though I don't share it. Can we find a way to work together despite this difference? Sometimes that's the win. End the conversation clearly. Don't let it trail off ambiguously. Summarize what was discussed, what was agreed upon, what the next steps are. So just to make sure we're on the same page, we agreed that this prevents future I thought we agreed to. No, I thought we agreed to. Confusion. Thank the person for being willing to have the conversation. I know this wasn't easy to discuss. I appreciate you being open to talking about it. Even if the conversation didn't go perfectly, acknowledging the difficulty and their willingness is important. Follow through on whatever you committed to in the conversation. If you said you'd change something, change it. If you said you'd think about something, think about it. If you said you'd check in next week, check in next week. Following through builds trust. Failing to follow through destroys it. Sometimes difficult conversations need to happen multiple times. One conversation might not resolve everything. That's okay. Progress is progress. I think we made some headway here. Can we continue this conversation next week? Keeps the door open. Not every difficult conversation will go well. Sometimes people aren't ready to hear what you need to say. Sometimes they respond with hostility or defensiveness that doesn't soften. Sometimes relationships end because of necessary conversations. This doesn't mean you shouldn't have had the conversation. It means the relationship couldn't survive honesty, which means it probably couldn't survive anyway. Better to know that sooner than later. The more difficult conversations you have, the better you get at them. The fear doesn't fully go away, but your skill increases. You develop intuition for what to say, when to push, when to back off, how to read the room. Practice with lower stakes, difficult conversations. Before you have the massive confrontation with your boss or your spouse, practice with smaller, uncomfortable conversations. The barista got your order wrong. You need to return something without a receipt. A friend said something that bothered you. These smaller moments are training grounds for bigger ones. They build your confidence and competence. They prove to yourself that you can handle discomfort. Remember that avoiding a difficult conversation is still making a choice. It's choosing to let the problem continue. It's choosing to prioritize short-term comfort over long-term resolution. Sometimes that's the right choice, but make it consciously, not by default. Most of the time, the anticipation of a difficult conversation is worse than the actual conversation. You've built it up in your head as catastrophic. But when you actually have it, especially if you do it well, it's usually nowhere near as bad as you feared. And the relief afterward is enormous. The weight you've been carrying, the stress of avoiding, the mental energy spent rehearsing, all of that lifts. Even if the conversation was hard, having had it feels better than continuing to avoid it. Difficult conversations are a skill you can master. They will never be comfortable, but they can become natural. You can become the person who doesn't shy away from hard topics, who addresses issues directly, who clears the air instead of letting toxicity build. This ability will serve you in every area of your life. At work, at home, in friendships, in romance, everywhere. Master it and watch how much cleaner and healthier your relationships become. Chapter 8. The Persuasion, Changing Minds and Influencing Outcomes. Persuasion is not manipulation. Manipulation is getting someone to do something that serves your interests at the expense of theirs. Persuasion is helping someone see why what you're proposing serves their interests, hopefully in a way that also serves yours. Ethical persuasion starts with believing in what you're advocating for. If you don't genuinely believe your idea is good, your proposal is sound, your perspective is valid, that inauthenticity will leak through. People can smell it. They might not be able to articulate why they don't trust you, but they'll feel it. The foundation of persuasion is credibility. If people don't believe you're credible, nothing you say will matter. Credibility comes from three sources: expertise, trustworthiness, and likability. You need all three. Expertise means you know what you're talking about. You've done your research. You understand the topic deeply. You can answer questions. You can provide evidence. You're not making it up as you go. Build your expertise before you try to persuade. If you're advocating for a new approach at work, you better have done the homework. If you're trying to convince your partner to try something different, you better have thought it through. Trustworthiness means people believe you're telling the truth and have good intentions. This is built over time through consistency, honesty, and keeping your word. If you've lied before or misrepresented things, your persuasiveness is compromised. You build trust by being honest even when it's uncomfortable, by admitting what you don't know, by acknowledging valid counterarguments, by showing that you're not just trying to win, you're trying to find the best solution. Likability matters whether we want it to or not. People are more easily persuaded by people they like. This doesn't mean being fake nice. It means being genuinely pleasant, showing interest in others, having a sense of humor, being warm. If people enjoy interacting with you, they're more open to your ideas. If they find you off-putting, they'll resist your ideas even if they're good. Fair? No. True? Yes. Understanding your audience is critical for persuasion. Who are you trying to persuade? What do they care about? What are their values, fears, goals, and constraints? The same argument doesn't work on everyone. A logical argument might persuade someone analytical. An emotional story might persuade someone empathetic. A financial analysis might persuade someone budget conscious. A vision of future possibilities might persuade someone innovative. Tailor your approach to your audience. Don't just make the argument that would persuade you. Make the argument that will persuade them. Start with common ground. Before you try to change someone's mind, establish what you agree on. I think we both want to see this project succeed. We might have different ideas about how to get there, but we're aligned on the goal. This creates partnership instead of opposition. When people feel like you're on their side, they're more open to your suggestions. When they feel like you're against them, they dig in and resist even good ideas. Frame your proposal in terms of their interests, not yours. Don't say, I want us to do X because it will make my life easier. Say, we should do X because it will help you achieve Y, which I know is important to you. People are motivated by their own interests, not yours. Show them how what you're proposing benefits them. Even if it also benefits you, lead with their benefit. Use the principle of reciprocity. When you do something for someone, they feel obligated to return the favor. This doesn't mean keeping score transactionally. It means building relationships where you're genuinely helpful. And when you need something, people want to help you in return. But be careful not to create quid pro quo situations that feel manipulative. I did this for you, so now you owe me, destroys trust. Authentic generosity builds it. A social proof is powerful. People look to what others are doing to decide what they should do. Everyone else is doing it is surprisingly persuasive. Other companies in our industry have already made this shift, or most of our competitors are ahead of us on this, creates urgency. Testimonials and case studies work for the same reason. If someone else tried what you're proposing and it worked, that's evidence that reduces risk and increases confidence. Scarcity creates urgency. This opportunity won't be available forever, or if we don't act now, we'll lose our competitive advantage, makes people more likely to say yes. But only use this if it's true. Fake scarcity is manipulation and will backfire. Authority matters. If you can cite credible experts or authoritative sources that support your position, do it. According to research from, or industry experts agree that, adds weight to your argument. But don't rely solely on authority. Because an expert said so is weaker than, here's why this makes sense, and by the way, experts agree. Combine authority with logic. Tell stories. Stories are more persuasive than data for most people. Data is abstract. Stories are concrete and relatable. Our customer satisfaction scores increased by 20% is less impactful than, last month a customer told me our new process saved her business. Here's what happened. Stories create emotional connection. They make abstract concepts real. They bypass analytical resistance and speak directly to intuition and emotion. But back your stories with data when you have it. And the most persuasive approach uses both. Stories for emotional connection and data for logical support. Address objections before they're raised. If you know what people will resist or question, bring it up yourself and address it. You might be thinking that this will cost too much. Here's why the long-term savings outweigh the upfront cost. This does two things. It shows you've thought things through, and it prevents the objection from becoming a roadblock because you've already provided the answer. Make it easy to say yes. The more friction there is between where someone is now and what you're asking them to do, the less likely they are to do it. Remove barriers. Simplify the process. Do the work for them. Just sign here and I'll handle the rest is more persuasive than, here's a complex process you'll need to navigate. People are lazy. Work with that, not against it. Use contrast to make your proposal seem more reasonable. If you're asking for something significant, frame it against something even more significant. I know hiring 3 new people seems like a lot, but the alternative is everyone burning out and quitting, which would cost far more to replace. The contrast makes the option you're advocating seem like the reasonable middle ground. Give people ownership. People support what they help create. Instead of presenting a fully formed solution, invite input. Here's my initial thinking. What am I missing? How would you improve this? Then genuinely incorporate their feedback. When people feel like they contributed to an idea and they become invested in its success, it's now partly their idea, not just yours. Start small and build. If you're asking for a big commitment, people might resist. But if you start with a small commitment, then build to bigger ones, you're more likely to succeed. This is the foot in the door technique. Can we try this for a week and see how it goes? Is less scary than, let's completely overhaul how we work. The small trial builds confidence and momentum toward bigger changes. Create urgency when appropriate, not fake urgency, but real reasons why acting now is better than waiting. If we implement this before the busy season, we'll be prepared. If we wait until during the busy season, it will be chaotic. But balance urgency with giving people enough time to process and decide. Rushing people into decisions they're not ready for often backfires. Be willing to compromise. If you go into a persuasive conversation with zero flexibility, you'll hit resistance. If you can identify what you're willing to give on and what you're not, you create room for negotiation. I'm firm on X, but I'm flexible on Y and Z. What matters most to you? This shows you're reasonable and looking for a mutually acceptable solution, not just trying to impose your will. Know when to walk away. Sometimes persuasion won't work. Sometimes the other person isn't ready. Sometimes the timing is wrong. Sometimes they genuinely disagree, and no amount of persuasion will change that. Pushing too hard damages relationships and reduces your credibility for future persuasion attempts. Know when to accept no gracefully and revisit later if appropriate. After you've made your case, stop talking. Don't keep selling after you've made the sale. Let your argument stand. Give the person space to think and decide. Over-talking undermines everything you built. I've shared why I think this is important. What are your thoughts? Then be quiet and listen. Persistence matters, but there's a line between persistence and pestering. Following up once or twice is persistence. Following up 10 times is annoying. Read the room and adjust accordingly. If someone says no, ask why. Understanding their objection gives you information. Maybe there's a way to address their concern. Maybe there's a different approach you haven't considered. Maybe they have a valid point that should change your position. I understand you're not convinced. Can you help me understand what's holding you back? This shows respect for their position and might give you the information you need to persuade them or to realize persuasion isn't appropriate. Accept that persuasion is a long game. Rarely does one conversation change someone's mind completely. Usually, it's a series of conversations, experiences, and information that gradually shifts perspective. Your job might not be to close the deal today, but to plant a seed that grows over time. Ethics in persuasion is non-negotiable. If you have to lie, manipulate, or coerce to get someone to agree, you're doing it wrong. Ethical persuasion means the other person is better off for having been persuaded. They made a decision that serves their interests based on accurate information. Check your intentions. Are you trying to help this person or just get what you want? If it's purely self-serving, either reframe it so it's genuinely mutually beneficial or reconsider whether you should be persuading at all. Persuasion is influence, and influence is responsibility. When you get good at persuading people, you have power. Use it wisely, use it ethically, use it in service of good outcomes for everyone involved. Master persuasion, and you master the ability to create change in yourself, in others, in organizations, in the world. It's one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Chapter 9. The confidence, owning your presence. Confidence is not the absence of fear. Confidence is action despite fear. It's speaking even when your voice shakes. It's walking into the room even when you want to hide. It's showing up even when you feel like an imposter. Most people wait to feel confident before they act. This is backwards. You build confidence by acting before you feel ready. You do the thing, it goes okay, and your brain updates its threat assessment. The next time is slightly easier, then slightly easier again. Confidence is built through repeated exposure to the things that scare you. The confidence you're looking for already exists. It's not something you need to acquire from outside yourself. It's something you need to uncover by removing the layers of fear, self-doubt, and limiting beliefs that are covering it up. Every human is born confident. Watch a toddler learning to walk. They fall constantly. They don't stop to think, maybe I'm not a walking person. They just keep trying. Somewhere along the way to adulthood, most people learn to be afraid. They learn that falling hurts more than just physically. They learn to protect themselves by playing small. Unlearning this protective programming is the work of building confidence. It's not about adding something. It's about removing what doesn't serve you. Start by changing your relationship with failure. Most people see failure as evidence that they're not good enough. Confident people see failure as data. It tells them what didn't work so they can try something different. When you stop attaching your worth to your outcomes, failure stops being threatening. You tried something, it didn't work. That's information, not indictment. You learn and adjust. This mental shift is transformative. Perfectionism is the enemy of confidence. Perfectionists can't be confident because confidence requires accepting that you won't be perfect and doing it anyway. If your standard is perfection, you'll never feel ready. You'll always have more to learn, more to prepare, more reasons to wait. Good enough is often actually good enough. Excellence is worth pursuing. Perfection is a prison. Learn the difference. Your inner dialogue shapes your confidence more than any external factor. If you're constantly telling yourself, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, everyone will judge me, you're programming yourself for failure. Your brain believes what you tell it repeatedly. Start noticing your self-talk. When you catch yourself in negative self-talk, challenge it. Is it actually true? What evidence supports it? What evidence contradicts it? Usually you'll find your negative thoughts are based on fear, not reality. Replace negative self-talk with neutral or positive alternatives, not toxic positivity that ignores reality, but realistic optimism. I can't do this becomes, I haven't done this yet. I'm going to fail becomes, this is challenging and I'm capable of figuring it out. Your body language affects your internal state. We covered this earlier, but it's worth repeating in the context of confidence. When you stand tall, breathe deeply, and take up space, you feel more confident. The external posture creates the internal state. Before important moments, do power poses. Reset your physiology. Get yourself into a confident physical state, and your mental state will follow. Preparation breeds confidence. When you know your material inside and out, when you've anticipated questions, when you've practiced, you naturally feel more confident. You're not faking it. You're genuinely ready. But don't let preparation become procrastination. There's a point of diminishing returns. At some point, more preparation won't make you more ready. It's just a way to avoid doing the scary thing. Learn to recognize when you're actually prepared versus when you're hiding behind preparation. Start building your confidence in low-stakes situations. Don't wait for the big presentation or the important meeting to try to show up confidently. Practice in everyday interactions. Speak up in small meetings. Make small talk with strangers. Take small risks. Each small success builds evidence that you can handle things. This evidence accumulates. Your brain starts to see you as capable. Confidence grows. Visualization works. Before important moments, close your eyes and vividly imagine yourself performing well. See yourself speaking clearly. See yourself handling questions smoothly. See yourself feeling calm and in control. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and real ones. Visualization creates neural pathways similar to actual practice. Elite athletes use this technique constantly. You should too. But balance visualization with realistic expectations. Imagine success, but don't imagine perfection. Imagine yourself handling challenges well, not pretending challenges won't exist. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Confidence doesn't mean comfort. Confident people feel discomfort and proceed anyway, and they've trained themselves to tolerate the physical sensations of nervousness without letting those sensations stop them. When you feel anxious, instead of fighting it or trying to make it go away, just notice it. I'm feeling nervous, that's okay. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. It just means this matters to me. Acceptance of the feeling paradoxically reduces its power. Stop comparing yourself to others. Comparison is the thief of confidence. There will always be someone more experienced, more talented, more articulate than you. So what? They're running their race. You're running yours. The only comparison that matters is you versus past you. Are you better than you were last month, last year? That's the metric. Everything else is noise. Surround yourself with people who believe in you. Confidence is partially environmental. If you're constantly around people who doubt you, criticize you, or tear you down, it's hard to maintain confidence. If you're around people who support you, encourage you, and believe in you, confidence comes easier. This doesn't mean surrounding yourself with yes people who never challenge you. It means surrounding yourself with people who challenge you from a place of wanting you to succeed, not wanting you to fail. Celebrate your wins. Most people rush past their successes without acknowledging them. They achieve something and immediately focus on the next challenge. This trains your brain that nothing you do is good enough. When you succeed, pause, acknowledge it, feel it. Let yourself be proud. This creates positive reinforcement that builds confidence for future challenges. Own your accomplishments without false modesty. On when someone compliments you or asks about your achievements, don't deflect or minimize. Thank you is a complete sentence. Yes, I worked really hard on that is appropriate. You don't have to pretend you didn't earn what you earned. False modesty is often actually fear of being seen as arrogant. But there's a huge difference between confidence and arrogance. Confidence is, I'm good at this. Arrogance is, I'm better than you. You can own your skills without putting others down. Fake it till you make it is misunderstood. You're not faking confidence in the sense of being dishonest. You're acting as your confident self would act, even before you fully feel it. You're trying on the behaviors, and the internal feeling follows. This works because behavior and emotion are connected. Change your behavior, and your emotions eventually catch up. Act confident, and you start to feel confident, not overnight, but over time. Confidence in one area can transfer to others. If you're confident in your technical skills, you can borrow that confidence when learning to be more socially confident. I learned that hard thing. I can learn this too. Confidence is generalizable. Physical fitness builds confidence in unexpected ways. When you're strong, when you have stamina, when you feel good in your body, it affects how you show up in all areas of life. This doesn't mean you have to be an athlete. It just means taking care of your physical self supports your mental and emotional confidence. Experience is the ultimate confidence builder. The first time you do something, you're terrified. The 10th time, you're comfortable. The 100th time, you're confident. There's no shortcut around this. You have to put in the reps. This is why taking action is more important than feeling ready. Action creates experience. Experience creates confidence. Confidence creates better action. It's an upward spiral, but it starts with that first scary step. Confidence is not loudness. Some of the most confident people are quiet. They don't need to dominate conversations or prove themselves. They know their worth without needing constant validation. Quiet confidence is often more powerful than loud confidence. Don't confuse confidence with extroversion. Introverts can be just as confident as extroverts. Confidence is about believing in yourself, not about being the loudest person in the room. Learn from confident people, but don't try to become them. Study what makes them effective. Notice their patterns. Then translate those lessons into your own authentic style. Borrowed confidence is obvious and ineffective. Developed confidence is powerful. Confidence without competence is dangerous. Make sure you're actually building skills, not just attitude. Real confidence comes from knowing you can deliver, not just feeling like you can. But don't wait until you're fully competent to show confidence. You can be confident in your ability to figure things out even when you don't have all the answers yet. I don't know, but I'll find out, said confidently, is better than knowing the answer but saying it timidly. Risk is required for confidence growth. If you never do anything that scares you, you never prove to yourself that you can handle scary things. Seek out challenges slightly beyond your current ability. Not so far beyond that you're set up to fail, but enough that success feels meaningful. Each time you do something you didn't think you could do, your confidence expands. Your sense of what's possible grows. You become the person who takes on challenges instead of the person who avoids them. Confidence is a decision you make every day. It's deciding to show up, to speak up, to take up space, to try even when you might fail, to be seen even when you might be judged. These decisions compound over time into an unshakable sense of self. You are worthy of being heard. You are capable of handling challenges. You have value to offer. These are not things you need to earn. They're true right now. Confidence is recognizing and acting on these truths. Own your presence. Own your voice. Own your space in the world. Not apologetically, not tentatively, but fully and unapologetically. This is your life. Show up for it confidently. Chapter 10. The Practice. Making Excellence Permanent. Everything you've learned means nothing if you don't practice it. Knowledge without application is just trivia. You can understand every principle in this entire training and still communicate poorly if you don't actually implement what you know. The gap between knowing and doing is where most people fail. They consume information, they nod along, they agree with everything, and then they go right back to their old patterns. Nothing changes because knowing is not the same as doing. You're at a choice point right now. You can let this be another thing you learned about and never actually applied. Or you can commit to making real, lasting change in how you communicate. Not someday. Starting right now. With your very next conversation, practice doesn't mean waiting for the perfect opportunity. It means treating every interaction as practice. The conversation with your colleague, the call with your mom, the exchange with the cashier. Every single one is an opportunity to apply something you learned. Pick one thing to focus on in your next 10 conversations. Maybe it's pausing before you speak. Maybe it's maintaining better eye contact. Maybe it's listening without planning your response. Pick one specific thing and do it intentionally 10 times. After 10 repetitions, pick a different thing. Build your skills one at a time, layering them on top of each other. Trying to change everything at once leads to overwhelm and failure. Changing one thing at a time leads to sustainable improvement. Record yourself. Audio record your phone calls if legal and appropriate. Video record yourself practicing presentations. Watch and listen back with honest eyes and ears. You'll see things you didn't realize you were doing. Awareness is the first step to change. This will be uncomfortable. You'll probably cringe at how you sound or look. Do it anyway. The discomfort of seeing yourself objectively is less than the cost of continuing to communicate poorly without realizing it. Get feedback from people you trust, not just positive feedback, but honest feedback. What's one thing I could do better in how I communicate? Listen without defending. Thank them for their honesty. Then actually work on what they identified. Most people never ask for feedback because they're afraid of what they'll hear. But feedback is gold. It shows you your blind spots. It tells you what you can't see about yourself. Role-play difficult conversations before having them for real. Get a friend to play the other person. Practice what you'll say and how you'll say it. Get comfortable with the words so they flow more naturally when it matters. This feels silly. It's also incredibly effective. Athletes don't just show up on game day and wing it. They practice. Actors rehearse. Musicians do scales. Why would you not practice something as important as crucial conversations? Create environmental triggers for good communication habits. Put a sticky note on your laptop that says, "Pause before responding." Set a phone reminder that says, "How's your posture?" Use your environment to remind you of the practices you're building. Track your progress. Keep a journal where you note communication successes and failures. What went well today? What didn't? What will you do differently tomorrow? This reflection turns experience into learning. Without tracking, you won't notice your improvement. Your growth will be invisible to you, and you'll get discouraged. When you track, you see the progress clearly, which motivates continued effort. Find a communication buddy, someone else who's also working on improving their communication skills. Share what you're working on. Hold each other accountable. Celebrate each other's wins. The journey is easier with someone walking alongside you. Read your writing out loud before sending important emails or messages. Hear how it sounds. Often you'll catch awkward phrasing or unclear communication that you didn't notice when just reading silently. Join groups that force you to communicate. Toastmasters for public speaking. Book clubs for discussing ideas. Debate clubs for structured argument. Improv classes for thinking on your feet. Put yourself in situations that stretch your communication abilities. Deliberate practice is different from just doing something repeatedly. Deliberate practice means working on specific weak points with immediate feedback and adjustment. If you're bad at eye contact, deliberately practice making eye contact and adjusting based on how it goes. Repetition without intention just reinforces bad habits. Deliberate practice with intention creates improvement. Be intentional about what you're practicing and how. Study great communicators, watch TED Talks, and analyze what makes them effective. Read speeches and notice the language choices. Observe people in your life who communicate well and identify what they do differently. But don't just consume passively. Actively analyze. What specifically makes this person effective? What are they doing with their voice, their body, their words, their structure? Then experiment with applying those techniques yourself. Embrace failure as data. You're going to mess up. You're going to say the wrong thing. You're going to fumble through uncomfortable silences. You're going to lose your train of thought mid-sentence. This is part of the process. Each mistake shows you something. Maybe you need to prepare more. Maybe you need to slow down. Maybe you need to manage your nerves better. Learn the lesson and move forward. Dwelling on mistakes is useless. Learning from them is essential. Set specific communication goals, not vague goals like be better at communicating. Specific goals like I will speak up at least once in every meeting, or I will have one difficult conversation I've been avoiding by the end of this month. Specific goals are measurable. You know if you did it or not. Vague goals let you off the hook with excuses and rationalization. Challenge yourself regularly. Once you're comfortable with something, push beyond that comfort. Speak to larger audiences, have harder conversations, tackle more complex topics. Comfort is the enemy of growth. The edge of your comfort zone is where learning happens. If you're always comfortable, you're not growing. Seek the discomfort. Be patient with yourself. Communication mastery is a lifelong journey, not a destination you reach and then you're done. You will always be improving. There will always be room to get better. This isn't discouraging, it's liberating. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be better than you were yesterday. That's achievable. That's sustainable. Notice when you're slipping into old patterns. Awareness catches you before you're too far down the wrong path. Oh, I'm doing that thing where I interrupt. Let me course correct. This real-time awareness and adjustment is how new patterns replace old ones. Celebrate small wins. You stayed calm during a tense conversation. That's a win. You asked a clarifying question instead of assuming. That's a win. You spoke up when normally you'd stay silent. That's a win. Acknowledge these victories. Small wins accumulate into massive change over time. Don't discount them just because they seem minor. means every expert was once a beginner celebrating the same small victories you are now. Apply these principles in writing too. Your emails, your texts, your reports. The same rules apply. Clarity, conciseness, consideration of your audience, deliberate word choice. Writing is communication. Practice there too. Teach others what you're learning. Teaching forces you to understand concepts more deeply. Explaining to someone else reveals gaps in your own understanding. Plus, teaching reinforces the learning in your own mind. You don't have to be a master to teach. You just have to be a step ahead of someone else. Share what's working for you. Help others avoid the mistakes you made. Create a communication system that works for you. Maybe it's a pre-conversation checklist. Maybe it's a post-conversation reflection routine. Maybe it's a set of go-to phrases for different situations. Build systems that support your growth. Systems remove the need for constant willpower. When you have a system, you just follow the process. It's automatic, not dependent on motivation. Review these principles regularly. Don't just go through this training once and consider yourself done. Come back to it. Different principles will resonate at different times. You'll notice things you missed the first time. Repetition is how things move from conscious effort to unconscious competence. The first time you apply a principle, it's awkward and effortful. The 100th time, it's natural and automatic. Get to that 100th repetition. Hold yourself accountable, not in a harsh, punitive way, in a committed, loving way. You decided this matters. You decided to get better. And honor that decision by following through, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it. Your future self is counting on your current self to do the work. Every practice session, every uncomfortable conversation, every moment of intentional communication is an investment in the person you're becoming. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming the fullest, most articulate, most authentic version of yourself. It's about removing the barriers that prevent your true thoughts, feelings, and ideas from being expressed and understood. You have something valuable to contribute. You have perspectives worth sharing. You have ideas worth expressing. Don't let poor communication keep those things locked inside you. The world needs what you have to offer. Excellence in communication is not a genetic gift. It's not reserved for a special few. It's a set of skills that anyone can learn if they're willing to put in the work. You're clearly willing, or you wouldn't have made it this far. The only question is, will you actually apply what you've learned? Will you make the commitment to practice? Will you push through the discomfort of changing old patterns? Will you stick with it when progress feels slow? You have everything you need. You have the knowledge. You have the tools. You have the understanding. Now, you just need to do the work. One conversation at a time, one day at a time, one improvement at a time. A year from now, you can be exponentially better at communicating than you are today. But only if you start today, only if you commit today, only if you practice today. The hour you invested here is just the beginning. What you do with what you learned in the hours, days, and weeks ahead is what matters. Make it count. Your voice matters. Make sure it's heard.